All right, so let's go ahead and look at this lesson about writing linear equations. So from the last lesson, you remember that there are three forms of linear equations. We have slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, which is when we have the slope and the y-intercept. We have standard form where x and y are on the same side, and a, b, and c are all not capital letters, I'm sorry, whole numbers. And then we have point slope form, which is the one that we kind of spent the most time on today, which gives us a slope of m and a point of x1, y1. Remember that since this is written with subtraction, we have to remember that the x and y are opposite. So the first thing I want to do is practice just writing from a graph. These are pretty easy things to write, and we said most of the time you all are most familiar with slope-intercept form, so that's where we're going to start today. So if we go ahead and try to write the equations of these two lines, for slope-intercept form, we obviously need two things. We need to figure out where is the slope and where is the y-intercept. So in this first example, the y-intercept I see is down here at -3. So the y-intercept is 0, -3. And then our slope, we just want to find 2 points where the line is crossing through the corners, the same way you do when you count slope, obviously, because that's what we're doing. So notice that I'm going down 2 and to the right 1. That is -2 over 1, or the simpler way to write that is just to say -2. So if I take that information to write it in an equation, that gives me y equals -2x minus 3, where -2 is the slope and -3 is the y-intercept. All right, this other question is kind of similar, except when you go to find the y-intercept, there isn't one, and when you go to find the slope is undefined. So remember, this line right here, this completely vertical line, is crossing through the x-axis at 3, and since it's vertical, that just means my equation is going to be x equals 3. All right, so there's writing equations from a graph. Let's look at when they give us some other information. So if they give us a slope and a point, this should automatically think for you to use point slope form. So what I'm going to show you is how to write it in point slope, but then also how to get the other two forms. And that's what we're going to spend a good amount of time practicing tomorrow. So if we're going to write it in point slope form, let's see, point slope. I'm just going to label my different forms here. I know that I need to do, we're going to switch the x and the y and make them opposite. So that's going to be y minus 6 equals -2/3 x plus 8. All right, that's all from the last video. So there's my point slope form. And then let's say that the directions also asked us to change this into y-intercept form and to change it into standard form. So I just want to practice, again, showing you how to do that so that you kind of feel more comfortable with it in context. So now if we're going to change this into slope-intercept form, I know that in neither of these parentheses are involved, so the first thing I'm going to have to do is distribute. All right, that's going to give me y minus 6 equals -2/3 x minus 16/3. And if you have a calculator, you can just multiply -2/3 times 8, or just remember that it's the top of the fraction that multiplies. And now slope-intercept form means I want the y to be by itself, so I'm going to have to add 6. Well, I can't add 6 to the -2/3 x, but I can add it to the 16/3, which is going to give me y equals -2/3 x. And then again, you can either use a calculator or just know 6 is 18/3 if you change that into a fraction. So -16 thirds plus 18/3 is going to be -2/3. Again, I'll show you how to do that part with a calculator if you're stuck on how to just do this particular calculation without a calculator. I can show you how to do that with one tomorrow. All right, so there's my equation in slope-intercept form, meaning I now know the slope of this line is -2/3 and the y-intercept is -2/3. So let's try in standard form. Again, standard form doesn't have the parentheses, so I'll distribute first. So that's still the same first step. Y minus 6 equals -2/3 x minus 16/3. Now in standard form, the two rules are x and y on the same side and no fractions. And you all know I like to get rid of fractions first, so that's what I'm going to do first. So I'm actually going to multiply everything by 3, just like we did really at the very beginning of the year. And that's going to give me 3y minus 18 equals -2x, right? Those 3's canceled, minus 16. They canceled there too. And now I just need x and y on the same side. So I'm going to move this -2x over. That's going to give me positive 2x plus 3y minus 18 equals negative 16, and move the negative 16 over, negative 18 over, so add 18. So my final answer will be 2x plus 3y equals positive 2. All right, so there's an example using a slope and a point, and that's giving you all three forms. So you want to make sure you have all three of those in your notes, depending on the type of problem you're going to see tomorrow. And now here's our last example, and this is for us to find the equation of a line if they've given us 2 points. So remember, we like point-slope form because it's really easy to just write an equation straight from there. The problem is you actually need a slope for that, and we don't have a slope. So the first thing we're going to actually need to do is find the slope. And you all know the equation for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to go ahead and work that out. 4 minus negative 5 over negative 2 minus 4. Let's see, that's going to give me positive 9 over negative 6. You do want to simplify that if you can. It's just going to make it easier to work out. So that's going to be negative 3 over 2 as my slope. So if I go ahead and write point-slope form, I get this question a lot. Which point should I use? To be honest, you can use either point you want to. Okay, so I'll write both of them just so that you see, but you can pick either one, and I can't count one or the other like more correct. So one option is to say y, if I use this first point, I'd say y plus 5 equals negative 3 over 2 x minus 4. Or I can write another equation, which will simplify to the same thing. I mean, you could work that out if you don't believe me. But it's the other option is using this other point, y minus 4 equals negative 3 over 2 x plus 2. All right, both of those are point-slope form for the same line. So again, we'll practice doing, we can practice doing slope-intercept form, and we can practice doing standard form. Okay, so I'm going to go quick through this just so you see another example. So for slope-intercept form, for both of them, remember we have to distribute first. That's going to give me y plus 5 equals negative 3 over 2x plus 6 when you simplify. And then subtract 5 from both sides. That will give me y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 1. All right, if I do standard form, I need to, again, distribute first. So y minus 4 equals negative 3 over 2 x minus 3. And then if I just kind of want to show you that this really will give me the same equation. If I add 4 to both sides as if I were going to do slope-intercept form, notice that that will give you plus 1 right here, which will be the exact same equation that I had when I solved for y-intercept using that other point. Okay, but that's not what I want to do here. I want to actually turn this into standard form, so let's undo that. Standard form means I want all the fractions to go away, so I'm going to multiply everything here by that denominator, so multiply by 2. That's going to give me 2y minus 8 equals negative 3x minus 6. And then I want to get x and y on the same side. Eventually, you're going to get good enough that you can do this kind of without having to do so much work. So I'm going to move the x over, and I'm going to add 8 to this other side. So if you can follow me doing these 2 steps at once, that's going to give me 3x plus 2y. And then when I add 8, that will give me positive 2 on the other side. All right, so there you go. Those are all of our examples for today.